Okay, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about things we love. Yeah, put that to memory. You guys all know my
Yeah.
co-host Andrew Sides. Our guest today is Chris Rahn, who
Howdy.
I'll admit I'm shocked that you said yes. I was like, I figured you'd be so busy, you'd be one of the hardest people to get. I've been trying to, when the show originally started, the idea was pick a specific geeky topic. So we'd pick something like Transformers as an example, and then
Oh,
I would
sure,
get
sure.
people on to talk about Transformers or whatever.
Yeah.
But I realized the problem quickly was not everyone knows like one specific thing, but they know everything, right? Especially artists,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and like how do you find the person that's obsessed with
Correct.
Transformers in
So
particular?
like quickly switched at it. Well, the thing was I didn't want it to turn into a show where I'm just interviewing artists because those exist all over the place. But what's been fun about this now is we've turned it into kind of a little bit of a question and answer, not so much business oriented. It's more like I was telling you before we went live. It is legit just us hanging out and catching up, And if
Yeah,
business
for sure.
stuff comes up, it comes up,
Business
And
stuff and also like I mean, artists hanging out, it usually winds up going to like talking shop about,
yes,
whatever mediums or whatever
yeah.
programs you're working with or sometimes into client stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like in I have a private Discord where a bunch of us have been talking about traditional stuff recently, and I'm like
Mm.
taking notes like left and right because I'm trying to bring traditional work to LuxCon at the end of the year. Nothing
Oh,
wild,
nice.
just a couple pieces to. But the problem is everything looks fine, but it doesn't look like there's a vast difference when you do digital work versus and some people can imitate it really well, and you're just like Scott Fisher's a prime example of this.
Yeah.
He can
Yeah.
take
I mean,
his
Scott's
digital
also
stuff.
like he's more of a designer too. Like it's not just like realism.
Right, and his stuff just like works both ways, right? And the I've been experimenting, and it's getting there. It's just
You
not the
you
same.
know, so I've been actually thinking about it just back in my head, percolating, because
Yeah,
I know you've been working at this problem for a while,
I have.
and something I didn't think about, like, have you tried collaging, like light gels or holographic mylar onto your work, like cutting out, like your excuse
Yeah,
me,
so
cutting out
I have
your
tried
polygonal
cutting out.
shapes and like, but like how like your artwork will have. Say it's like an arm, and you have like a triangular shape that's going through that and shifting light, like
I get
also
what you're
across
saying.
you as well. Yeah, like if you have it overlaid with like some different gels and stuff, and then you can once you like
It's
Mod Podge that in or whatever, you can always coat it with some matte medium or like a gloss
right.
medium of some kind,
It's
and then
worth a
work on
test.
that further.
'Cause I've tried.
Yeah,
It's not
I
construction
feel
paper. I
like
forget what it's called. I've tried like the colored paper you can get at like Blick,
right.
but it doesn't have the shine. And maybe the gel is the key. And
Yeah,
I've tried.
Yeah.
What I was gonna try currently is I talked to I think his name was Dan Cohen. Was it IX with us? It's got a very like vibrant style. He was in the main show, and he was telling
mhm,
me to paint directly onto my metal. Like I'm using acrylic gouache, um, poster paint, and what are they called? Posca markers, right? So I'm trying these tests, and he was like, instead of doing it on paper or Bristol, like I've been trying it, he's like, do it directly to the metal sheet, and he's like, let the metal come through it. Maybe
yeah.
What kind of metal sheets are you using?
it's just aluminum sheets. What happened?
Oh,
You?
sweet.
But like, do those have
Where's
a
that
coating
happening?
on them or whatever? Because I know,
They
like,
have like a
don't
shine
aluminum
to
panels
them.
have like, yeah, I was gonna say, don't aluminum panels for painting usually are like scuffed or something to allow adhesion?
They have there's no texture on them. They're pretty smooth to the touch. It's almost like touching glass. But
Mm.
there is a gloss on top of it. I'm trying to I have so much stuff in here and I don't think I have the metal up here anymore.
Yeah,
But
I've been
like
curious about that because like the company that makes the boards that I use,
mhm,
Artifacts, they basically the most of their boards are like a sandwich of aluminum on both sides with a plastic in the middle. So it's
right.
like
Oh,
really hard and rigid. And then
Yeah.
they
like the
glue linen or whatever to the surface of it to make whatever surface you want. You can either get like straight aluminum or canvas
right.
or linen or whatever. But they just started releasing copper ones too. And supposedly you can just paint straight onto copper. Like I haven't dug into it too much, but I've seen some really cool videos of people using them.
I mean,
Oh wow.
Scott did that back in the day,
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say I've seen Scott do it.
Yeah.
what's the name of the company you use?
It's called Art Effects.
Oh,
It's like
Artifacts.
ARTEFEX, I think. They're out of California.
Mhm.
I'll
I
definitely
didn't know
look
it
into
was
it.
sandwiched like between like there's a plastic middle between it. I didn't know that. I thought it was just like a pure aluminum panel or something.
I can grab one and hold it up to the camera. You can probably see it.
Sure.
See, it's just like gesso linen on the
Mhm.
front, but
Okay.
then like see if I can get it to focus enough. See, you can see
Oh,
both
that's pretty
lines of the
thick.
aluminum,
Yeah.
and then there's like this black, like really rigid plastic, but they're just so freaking durable feeling. It's
You can
crazy.
draw on top of that, or you
Yeah, I
you
mean
just
this one's
paint.
linen, so it's like you could just go straight to paint at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
That's
I just get
cool.
them like prepped because they do such a good job.
They're way lighter than masonite, aren't they?
Eh,
Not as much?
they're actually pretty heavy. You'd be
Oh.
surprised.
I thought that was like the one of the selling points is like it's like at least a half the weight or something.
Maybe if it were just aluminum, but I think the plastic's pretty heavy because it's about it, probably an eighth of an inch thick, like most of the masonite that we paint on.
Gotcha.
But
I mean, the metal's
yeah,
got
it's
weight to it. I think people like when it's. I think if you hand somebody something with some weight to it, there's a psychological thing in their head where they're like, this is value just went up.
yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
it's just super sturdy. And like I used to paint on masonite up until like a couple of years ago, but then
Masonite's
I was
heavy.
kind of missing being able to find like that sort of old master texture you can get with linen. Like just when you're working, you wind up with, I don't know, it just grabs the paint different. It kind of has like more of an old world look to it. But I
Okay.
hate painting on stretch canvases because they're so fragile. So it was just like, no, this is kind of the best of both worlds. And they're only like maybe like 10% more expensive than like the ampersand cradle boards I was working on.
Mm.
Screw it. I'll
It's worth
just
looking. I'll definitely look
Yes,
into
like,
it.
why not just do that then? Yeah.
It's worth a test. I'm willing to test everything. At this point, when somebody says try this, I'm like, yeah, let's try it. You know, like,
yeah, and I mean this is stuff that like wasn't even around until fairly recently, you know. It wasn't
Yeah.
even, like I had teachers that would basically do this themselves where they'd like glue down canvas or linen to masonite or whatever kind of board and paint on that, but it's pretty arduous and it can go sideways. Like it's nice to just have
yeah.
it show up perfect and you could just get straight to it.
I mean, I remember I watched a video of like the noodle like printing and then gluing and then rolling, and at some point I was like,
Yeah,
I don't really want to do all that. You know, like
yeah,
I want
gluing
to
down
make
a print is that's a
It's
whole skill in itself. I've done it a couple times, like just taking the sketch and putting it straight onto a piece of masonite, but I don't know. I still just always revert to the graphite transfer paper and like the big
that's
print
that black
we draw.
paper. Yeah,
honestly, I would God, I'd rather have my hand smashed by a bolting hammer. I hate graphite transfer paper
dude, I
so
used that for
much.
years when I was in art school. I love that stuff. I like
I
it better
still
than so. I had friends who would do like the charcoal on the back, and then they would
mm,
tape
Oh
it
yeah,
down
that
and then
too. I don't.
over it.
I'm not a fan of either of those methods.
I mean, the
yeah, I mean
graphite
it's
paper you
I
got to
think
tape it down.
Yeah.
you got to lock it down. You got to make sure you get good stuff too, because like for a long time I was using that Saral graphite transfer that's only like 12 inches wide,
Mhm.
and I don't know that it didn't
We
have
just
like
switched
a lot.
sides.
Oh, sorry, because I
Yeah,
muted.
well, it's more that it was like the quality of the graphite or something like wasn't super good. I found this other brand that's like Jack Richardson transfer paper or something
Jack
like that, and
Richardson.
Oh,
it comes in 24-inch rolls,
Okay.
so it's just like
oh,
one roll out. And man, that stuff is dark by comparison. Like it looks like compressed charcoal when you're done. I
really?
I'm
don't
gonna
know
look
what the
into that
difference
too.
is.
I'm using the stuff you get. I was using the stuff you get at Blick, which is like what he's talking about, 12-inch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dang,
you can
yeah,
get it
that's what I need.
online. It just like comes in these rolls. So it's
Hmm.
transfer paper, and then like Jack Richardson, really small at the bottom.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I either print and mount or I'll just use like a projector instead and then do it that
oh,
way.
sure. But then, I mean, if you're using a projector, it's basically the same thing. Like you still have to redraw them.
It's not so much like the redrawing aspect of it. It's more like for some reason I feel like the graphite, and this may just be totally me, like in all the cases I've ever used like graphite transfer paper, I've always had a lot of difficulty erasing the graphite transfer if I ever needed to like make a correction or something. It like something about it, like it smudges weird, or something like it doesn't lift off of like, as opposed to like if I did a pencil projector trace in, that pencil I know for a fact will lift off if I need to erase it, or but for some reason
True. Yeah, I guess it
graphite
really
transfer
depends on
is
your
smudged.
process. Like the first
Yeah.
thing I do after I transfer it is I spray fix that down so it's like
Mm.
perfect. Perfect.
Right, so it doesn't
And
smudge
then a
and
layer of
stuff.
matte medium. So any changes I make after that are like in paint, but I pretty much have all my choices locked down in terms of placement before I do that.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, yeah, that might also be it. Is like it's just not meant to be corrected a whole lot. Because like sometimes after I'll do it, I'll be like, oh, I want to change that. I want to move that over there or something, and then yeah, then I run into those issues. So I at this point I'm just like I don't want to deal with it. I'll go the long way around or just print and mount like Donato if I need to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, everybody's different. Like for
Yeah.
me, I'm like, my entire career has basically been magic with other things mixed in between, but like pretty much every wave. So you wind up with this rhythm of like,
That was
there's
gonna
not a lot
be
of room for changes,
right.
Right.
or
Yeah,
like,
you have to have a lockdown method, right?
yeah, I try to lock everything down at the sketch phase where they approve it, more or less. Like I'll add detail, but I'm not moving anything around or making any
Yeah.
considerable
You're
changes. The risk of them then being like, well, we like the way it was in the sketch, but the final's like this, and we need you to change that. It's like that's going to eat into the next assignment, and then the next
Right.
one.
right.
It turns into this cascade that's kind of hard to control.
Your
Oh,
sketches are crazy, by the way. Like
Oh, thanks, man.
I
Yeah,
was
we were
like,
the
we
other
were talking the
day.
other night. So he gave me some advice on. You actually gave me some of the best advice on it because I was literally. So I'm sitting here trying to finish sketches for my first card, and when I work on my own personal stuff, I usually just do like a quick thumbnail, line art. You know, in your head, you're like, I know where everything's going. I know what this chicken scratch looks like. It's my work.
Mhm.
And then for magic, I was like, I'm gonna just put together a bunch of shapes and the way I would put them together on if I was starting a piece. Like again, it's literally like just throwing down things like this is gonna go here, this is gonna go there. But then I was
Mhm.
like, I talked to a couple of artists where I was kind of second guessing myself, where I was like, oh man, does this have to be more structured or thorough? And when you were like, just do it the way you normally do it and turn it in, I was like, that makes sense because they're not expecting me to do it a specific way. They're expecting, and I saw a bunch of art from other artists. They were nice enough to share stuff with me, and it went all over the board. Like some people just turned in sketch like line
Yeah,
art. Your
and I
stuff
think
looks
the
like
biggest
almost
mistake you
finished
can make is
paintings,
like they hire you to make stuff that looks like what they've seen of
right?
yours. So if you then get your first gig with them and then you're trying to chase some imaginary like house style or something, it's like that's the opposite of what they want. They just want
Right.
you, I guess, doing your thing. Especially at this
Right.
point, like back in the day, Magic had a pretty kind of lockdown style that everybody was doing, but it's opened up so much now that like they'd be disappointed if you were like trying to look like somebody else.
Right.
But there is a point though with what you were saying, like if you are worried ever with a sketch that it's like too abstract and like it may not read at that level, like a lot of times what some of the more like design oriented guys, like I've seen some of the sketches that like Dominic Mayer does.
Yeah.
Um like he'll what he submits is like so imagine this is the image, like he'll float the sketch in the middle of it and then like draw lines to like calling out like this means this is why I did
oh
Okay.
yeah.
and then, like that's just like a flat JPEG altogether that he'll submit, so that there's no way that like that info can get peeled off of it before it gets to the art director.
Okay.
Because yeah, I mean the art directors aren't like answering me, like there's somebody that downloads that file and puts it into the system, and then the art director goes and gets it out of the system. So you kind of have
Right.
to like glue everything together in a bundle before you
Right.
send
Make
it
sure it
in.
doesn't go. Yeah.
Oh,
That
I
makes
haven't even
sense
got
though
to
to
that.
like do some call outs like that, especially you have like kind of chicken scratch
It's not a bad idea for me to
sketches.
do that because I feel like, again, with my shape languages, I can see what X,
Oh
Y,
yeah, and
Z
like
is.
my
Yeah.
thumbnails are like that. And like I don't know if you noticed, but on this couple of sketches that I sent you, you can see some pencil lines
Yes, I did.
that
I
are kind
looked
of
close.
that's the thumbnail. And I
Okay.
just literally scanned a little thing that was like this big in my sketchbook, blew it up, and then basically what I do is I make that a multiply layer. And then I
And
just
paint on
work
top of it.
behind it
Okay.
basically and like fill it all in. And then sometimes I'll fade that out if the lines are getting too distracting or if it's crept away from them. But yeah, like I sort of use that as usually that's my skeleton. Sometimes I'll just go straight into Photoshop and start sketching that way. But a lot of times it's there's more
Yeah.
energy for one reason or another in that weird little thumbnail,
Yeah, so that's what I went right into I do a lot of stuff with lasso tool. So I went right into lasso tool and started putting shapes together. But I also
Mhm.
got a piece of advice from Ben Hill, which I thought was good, which was in Photoshop you have the little navigator in the corner, and he's like,
Hmm.
just keep looking at that navigator, and if you can't read what's in there, they're not going to be able to read
Yeah,
what's on your card. So
Yeah.
I came up with something
for
earlier
sure.
this afternoon where I was like, holy crap, that's brilliant, and I get it. It's a process, and I understand that. Zach's not
Yeah, I
gonna be
mean,
like, "Get fired."
you definitely
You know.
get more experience like thinking in a way to make things read at 2 inches, like the longer
Yeah.
you work on it in like magic. But I mean, when I'm working on sketches, I'm zooming out like over and over and over again to like the size of a magic card to make sure that it still works. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's like a crowd scene or some super complex thing, and it's like somehow through silhouettes and value and
Right.
the atmosphere, like you got to make it work. Because I mean, I remember playing Magic when I was a kid. And the hell is even going on this card right now? And you don't want to be one of those people.
I thought we were gonna lose him for a second there. He froze
Yeah.
up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I
it's
like,
all
oh,
right. No,
there,
no,
there he
it's
goes.
just a slight hiccup.
It's fine. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing. I started playing in when I was like 15 in high school. Back in the 90s. So I remember like it's vastly changed as far as the artwork goes, right? And
Oh, for sure. I mean, there were a few
yeah,
standout people back then, but for the most part,
yeah,
a lot of those guys didn't really survive the sort of
shift.
digital art
Yeah.
shift. Like once
Hmm.
people started working in Photoshop and got really good at doing like really complex lighting effects and stuff, a lot of those
Right.
like old school traditional artists couldn't really keep up, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of people hate digital artists. I don't know what to do about that.
I
Um,
started out doing both. My first Magic card was digital. A lot of people don't know that.
I
Oh,
But
definitely
like
didn't know that.
when
so
they called
are
me back,
you oil all the time now?
yeah, I haven't done a digital final in probably 16, yeah, 14 years, something like that.
So I'm always curious because, like, are the deadlines for Magic generous enough to allow for, like, with oil having to cure and everything and dry enough to photograph or scan or anything? Is there usually enough lead time for that kind of thing, or is it like you're having to
Yeah, no,
extending?
there's a so when you're on consistently with them, it's like you're wrapping up a wave of work, and in the week before the deadline, you get an email from either the art director you're working with or a different one because they have a lot of stuff going on simultaneously.
Mhm.
Going like, okay, how many can you take next wave? And you go, oh, I could take one, I could take two, I could take. Some people have done like six, like it's insane.
Oh
That
my
sounds
But
god!
crazy.
a wave is 6 weeks.
Right.
Like, so it's basically up to you. Like, if you say you can take six and you can't, and you wind up rushing all of them, like, going to be consequences to that. So
Yeah,
it's
it's gonna be a
a
rough
lot
time.
of like you need to manage yourself, and it's always tempting to take more than you should. But at the end of the
Right.
day, it's so much better to have like good finals than a lot of finals. But for me, like I'm usually doing two finals a wave, and then there's usually some other thing mixed in there, like some for D
Yeah,
and D or
two feels like a safe.
Right.
Like in my head, I got one, and initially I was like, oh, I only got one. But once I read it and looked at the world guide, and then went back to reading it, and now I'm in it, I'm just like, one feels very comfortable. Like I
it's
don't
always better to
understand how.
just like wade in. You don't want to like
I'm
suddenly be
literally
like,
like I'm still in like the 4 foot part of the pool, like I'm cool right here, um, and that's fine. And it feels, I feel like if they said how many do you want next wave, I'd be like one. one's good, because I also do like conventions. I'm also working on my own IP, right? And I don't
Exactly.
and I don't want. I know a lot of there's artists out there who are like magic, like your thing is magic, and that's what you do. Like I don't. I'm nothing against magic. I just don't want to shift into that, right? I want to stay in working on
Yeah,
this
I mean,
IP
everybody's
because
got their own path.
yeah, I
But
love the fact that
I'm,
I finally got in because 15-year
yeah,
old Alan is super psyched,
Yeah.
and
and
it
in
was cool to
general,
get
like
that.
it's an awesome game to work on. Like I've had so few like negative experiences with fans, and I mean, all the art directors are super cool. Like
Everybody
like a
seems
bunch of
chill,
them are my friends. Like we'll like meet up for beers and stuff. Like they're
Oh,
just
nice.
good people. A lot of them used to be magic artists,
right?
so it's like a healthier sort of community than
I
a lot of
mean,
other places to be.
yeah, like my AD right now is Zach, and him and I have been friends for a while. But I just remember
Yeah.
when like I was done. It was a LuxCon, I think 2018, where I talked to him, and he was like, "Have you ever submitted stuff to WotC?" And I was just like, "No, because my aesthetic doesn't fit WotC's." I said, "My art doesn't fit WotC's aesthetic," and he was like, "I think it does." I don't know. He's an art director at this time, right? And then he's like,
Mhm.
"I think it does." I'm like, "Who are you?" And I was so drunk I forgot who Zach was. I blame Bud Cook for that, by the way, because he kept buying me rum and cokes. Um,
I mean,
and
that happens.
right, and he was like, "Zach," and I'm just like, "Oh my god, what's up?" And he was like, "Just submit, and we'll see." And then since then, I've just been waiting, and it's finally happened. But in my mindset, I was this kid who wanted to work on magic like every artist, and then I accepted that it's not going to happen, and I'm cool with just doing my own thing. So it's kind of neat, and it's cool. I was talking to some artists earlier about how I play a lot. I played a lot when I was in high school, and I played a ton in college, and I stopped because it was like you can spend a lot of money playing this game.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, for
I've
sure.
never played a lot of Commander. Anytime I played Commander, I was always borrowing a deck from a friend. But last year, our friend Josiah got me one deck at Gen Con, and now from last year to now, I have a friend who owns a hobby shop. He's just been trading me for playmats, and
Oh,
he
nice.
sells them in a store, right? I've got like 17 Commanders decks now, and I've opened 5 of
It
them.
holds you back in.
I know. I was out. Like my wife saw him, and she was like, "You getting back into that or what? What's going on here?" I'm just like,
Well, I
I
mean,
didn't spend
once your
any
stuff
money.
starts coming out, you're gonna start getting product in the mail too. So it's like
Yeah.
you get a
I'm
box of
yeah.
everything that you participate in.
I mean, I'm thinking about. Oh yeah, I heard about that. I'm more excited for like what are they the APs that could get to you. Like I like the
Oh
idea
yeah,
of like. So you and I are talking a little bit about like the secondary market, right? Like I feel like
yeah,
someone like you is like hitting solid gold at once you're done because you've got a traditional piece now that you can sell for X, and
right.
then you got these APs
Yeah,
that are
and I've been
get.
doing paintings on the back of APs lately too. Like the market for that's crazy right
Oh,
now.
yeah. Yeah. I've seen a huge uptick in that.
I checked out your website earlier. I saw like your signature costs and stuff because I was just curious what people charge, and I feel like
Yeah, it's funny, like the shadow signatures. Like it used to just be like, well, you want black or you want gold, but now it's like,
well, I've seen shadow signatures. I've seen the rainbow where they iron it.
oh yeah, my wife Alex does those. She works on magic too, so it's like
Yep. I
we
was gonna
both
ask
have
her
a
to.
low number.
Be on next when she's free. I'm just at this point.
Feel free to reach out.
Yeah, I'll reach out.
She's a
Camera
little
shy.
nervous about being on camera with people.
That's fair. But yeah, when I was at MagicCon Chicago, I saw like Miranda Meeks had like foil signatures, which so I was like,
Yeah, I screwed
everyone's
around
like,
with that a little bit, but I couldn't get it to work.
you should talk to Miranda. She's really cool about like they had like
Yeah, we bought all the gear.
process.
And I was talking to Howard Lyon. He does the same stuff. And yeah, it's just one of those things where like I also have a different issue than a lot of other people do at magic events where like my line is like
Dude, your
this
line is
monster I have
insane.
to control all the time. So like I have card limits for like what like I can do say 10 regular
Right,
signatures, but I can only do like 5 shadow signatures because they take much longer.
right.
And weirdly, it winds up slowing the line down enough that like it becomes an issue. Like there were a couple days at the last Magic Con in Chicago where like my line was only open for like It'd be open for an hour before lunch, starting at like 9 or whatever, and then they'd have to close it because there was more people than I could get to before lunch.
Yep.
And then like, they have to do the same thing. And so it was only open for like 2 hours over the whole day. And that was with card limits and all this stuff. So
Right.
like, anytime there's a new thing, like a holo signature or whatever, I'm like, pros and cons, you know?
I wonder if you can. I know, like fans like to see you sign it in person, but I wonder if you can get away with having like 10 holo signatures pre-signed, and you literally like, hey, you don't want to
Yeah,
wait in
that's
this
a
line, you can just
possibility.
buy this here and be on your way.
Yeah, it's
You
almost
know,
like having like a pre-painted artist proof or something.
correct.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
I don't
They're
see too many
just
people painting artist proofs
and the
at the
other thing is like,
shows.
what's that?
I don't see too many people painting the artist proofs at the shows. I feel like that would take
Oh
up a lot
no,
of your
no,
time.
not at all. For the
Okay.
most, I mean, I don't even do sketches or alters or anything at this point. Like that all used to be standard, but now it just slows the line
Right.
down, and it's like I just can't keep up. Like we fly our friend Britt out these days to help out, like just to help speed the line along, like check people out before they get to me, and it like that helps a ton. But it's like every time I figure out a thing to make it more efficient,
Yeah.
the line doesn't change. We see more people, but the length is the same.
Yeah, because I was there on Friday. I got up my Stephen Belladin hooked me up with a badge, so I was there for like
Mhm.
an hour maybe on Friday, and I was there most of the day. Sunday I try to be, and every time I try to like come on your side, you were just the only time I saw you was you were talking to Prescott for a minute, but I was also on my way out, so I'm like, I'll just message him later. You know, like I wanted to
Yeah,
stay and talk, but I was already like I gotta go. You know, but your line was you and
Elena for
Elena,
sure.
like just like you guys had good spots too, but like that line was like
Yeah,
it's cool. I mean,
but for
it's cool to
sure,
have
it's
fans like
always
that.
like that though, no matter where we are, just because of like the cards that we've done. Like for me, it's about how long I've been on the game and the
Right?
muted cards. For her, it's a combination of that, and she does a lot of lands.
Yeah.
So like everybody has a ton of her cards.
Yep.
So it's the most lands are the most common cards in Magic, all that stuff. So it's like
She was
it's
across
great
from me
for
at Gen Con. She was the guest founder one year, and in my head, I'm always regretting not getting her to sign a bunch of cards. She was like literally 10 feet away, and wasn't this is like 2018 or 2017. It wasn't that busy. I mean, it was busy for
her.
Gen Con, but not busy like this Magic convention was. And I was like, damn, I should have
Yeah.
gotten, and her and I were like at one point just chatting it up. We traded play mats, we were hanging out, and I was just like, but I'm not that
Yeah.
like,
That was
I'm
probably
ne-
before things blew up for her. I think like
yes,
that's the last few years that it got
yeah,
really crazy for her. Now she's like the going to every Magic Con. She's like more of a monster than I am with that stuff.
yeah, she's busy. But I was gonna, I had a question. I'm trying to remember.
And so
Oh,
you
so
said, yeah, you had some questions, right?
well, usually, so one of my first questions, usually for the guests, is where did we first meet? And I remembered this morning, which was I met you for the first time at IX. The last year, it was at Allentown because I was the photographer. That's how I got into
Was
the
that
show.
was that
That makes
2012? Or
I think
no,
it was
that was Altoona,
2016.
right?
Yeah, 2016 or 2017,
that was probably the last year I went, actually.
probably. I don't think I've seen you at the show
Yeah,
since then. Um,
Yeah.
and I was
I was
like,
gonna
yeah.
say like,
I really love going to those shows. But yeah, I had to stop because like the market for Magic originals got so crazy that I
Mhm.
was only working on Magic at that point, and I didn't have any originals left every year. So I like
oh,
literally didn't have anything to bring.
Right.
So it's like at some point I want to just go and hang out with people.
Good
But
problem, but yeah.
I mean,
no, it
that's
is
what
for
this year I think
sure.
what
Like
I'm gonna
no,
do. I've got a showcase every year, and every year I'm like, I'm not gonna do it this year. I'm just gonna go hang out, like Chiluxicon, I think is what they've been calling it, right? And I was just like, let's do it. But even this year, I was like, I'm gonna bring traditionals, but I think what I'm gonna do is only sell on Friday, and then Saturday I'm
Okay.
doing nothing. I'm gonna take that everything's gone after Friday because I
Yeah,
hate
it's
I hate the
like,
process of breaking down in a rush at midnight when everything's over when all my friends are in the lobby chilling and eating pizza
are
and stuff and
you
I'm still
Alan, are you gonna plan to bring like a smaller setup than what you have in the past?
all I'm gonna bring is a banner to put behind me,
Okay.
and then on the table I'm hoping to have 8 cards. I've already started sketching some fan art. I've got a Nightcrawler, a Gambit, and a Nova. if you know Nova. So I'm only sketching characters I like fan art wise, and then I'm hoping to have a couple longer pieces that are landscapes because I do landscapes really well. Character design's not my strong suit. I'm getting better at it. I'm taking Scott's character design classes for that main reason.
Sure.
I'm not used to drawing small. These cards are like, and I'm just like, so I'm doing, what do you call those? Like 3/4 poses, right? Just chest up, not doing anything crazy. I'm trying not to, but again, I feel more better if I haven't started painting on those cards yet because I think the sketches look good, but I'm scared of putting paint on it and being like, well, I fucked that up. At the same time, I
there's
don't
a
think anyone
process
would
to
know I fucked up unless I tell you, right?
it. I mean, it's really only a fuck up if you warp the card or you
Right.
do like some damage to the card where it's like not a sort of like a valid card anymore.
Right.
But I mean, like I only started painting on him a few years ago, like maybe like 3 years ago, something like that. And it was super hard at first. Like I didn't have the right brushes for it. I was not used to working small at all.
Right.
And they were like, it came out all right, but it was pretty crude. And I would just do like one, like a head or something of
Yes.
a character on it. But now it's like I'm doing most of the image from a magic card on the back. It's weird how you just like slowly get used to it.
I
It's
feel
just
like
like a
I'll
new
get used to it once I do more of it. And the reason I want to do the landscapes are I know I can do space scenes. Like I can do like a spaceship flying past a planet all day.
sure,
It's
sure.
just making the colors come out. And my goal is to have like 3, like what is that, like 6x10 pieces, and then 8 just cards, and that's it. I don't even know if I'll hit that goal at the rate I'm going because I literally have a show a month till November, on top of now magic work, top of 2 kids, like, and
But I
all
mean,
this
it's
all this
worthy
stuff I
stuff
want
to
to
be
get to.
working. Like
It's
sometimes you have to change course when good opportunities present themselves.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I was glad that the card came through now because I have I have ample enough time to get stuff done, and the 2 shows that I have in between this, next week is C2E2, which is Chicago, so it's local, and the show next month is also local. So I have nothing where I'm just like I have to leave the state. I have to, and my machine's right here, so I can come home and work still.
Right.
You know,
Nice. Yeah.
so I feel like
Yeah,
I'm
it's way
very
less draining. You can sleep in your own bed.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm very lucky in this sense. And once I get like what I've been trying to do is learn how to do stuff in Procreate on my iPad, just so like if I was on the road and
Hmm.
an AD's like, give me a sketch of this, this, and that, I could be like, yeah,
For sure. Yeah,
give me
there's
a day
people
or
doing
two.
finals in Procreate.
Dude, I
I
don't get it.
follow
No idea how.
like Wayne Barlow, the guy who did Barlow's Inferno and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like
He's
I
doing
follow him.
finals in Procreate?
Yeah, he's posting like progress stuff, hashtag Procreate all the time.
So
Like
I
you guys
got
should check
this.
it out. Crazy.
This is not what I want to talk about at the end, but I'll show this to you because I've been learning from this book. It's really good. It's worth investing in. It's
Yeah,
literally it says
sweet.
it's $32. I got it for $20 on Amazon, but it's because I'm looking at people online who are doing like Photoshop level digital art in
Yeah, I'm
Procreate,
wondering
and I'm
like
just
how the
like,
hell.
how, and a lot
Yeah,
of the
I
layer
mean,
adjustments and stuff are just buried in there. You gotta know how to find it,
seen some
essentially.
pretty impressive like texture work and stuff come out of Procreate. Like I don't have any
Yes,
experience with it, but the people that I follow that work in it, it's pretty damn impressive, I gotta say.
yeah. There's a couple people on Instagram that I think are really good, like Bastian Grivet, I think his last name.
Hmm.
He did work on like Spider Verse
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
Dune,
yeah.
Dune maybe.
Makes sense.
It's insane the stuff this dude cooks out. I'm jealous. Like,
I have no idea. I have
I'm
no
just like,
idea how.
how are you doing this, man? Share the secret sauce.
Yeah, like I feel like working on a tablet would be nice because it's almost like working on a Cintiq where you're actually like pointing the utensil where you want it to be. But like
Yeah,
I still use a Wacom tablet, like old
yeah.
school,
Got
just
one
because that's
here.
how I learned.
Yeah.
So when I'm sketching, I just like
Oh, you got
got
the
my
one on the
process.
table.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
like I can totally like Alex has a Cintiq. She learned how to use that in
Man, I learned
school
on
or
a
whatever.
baboo. Do you remember the bamboos? It's Wacom bamboos,
Oh,
Oh, I
because
remember those,
and it was
like,
only like literally 6x10. And my manager at work got it for me one day, and I used to just learned on that. I was like, this is insane.
I always had so much trouble with that disconnect. Like I got
Yeah.
decent at it, but as soon as I was able to jump ship to a Cintiq, I did. I remember like I scrounged and saved up money during a part-time job to get like I think it was the 15-inch model of Cintiq, which like
Do you?
if you ever seen that guy, the screen's like
Right.
practically the size of like almost an iPad. It's
Right.
a small screen and the bezel on it is like that thick and like
Oof.
that high off the screen. So it's like you run into the edge of it and you're like, "Oh yeah, no, I can't like draw over to the thing like hit the edge and like that's that kind of deal."
Do you have a
But it was
Yeah.
still
Cintiq
like,
now?
say what now?
Do you have a Cintiq?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, you do.
I've
Okay.
got the whatever. It's the last generation before they started doing the 16:9
Yeah.
formats.
I mean, I think mine's
So
about to. I think I.
this thing's like 15 years old
Yeah.
at this
I mean,
point.
I was gonna switch this. I have a Huion. I invested in a Huion
Mhm.
last year. I still haven't set it up because the Cintiq felt like it was gonna die, and then somehow I feel like the Cintiq's like I'm good to go a little longer because it's been working fine, and I haven't
Yeah,
switched it yet because I'm using it now for this magic assignment. I'm scared of changing my workflow till I'm done, right?
yeah.
So I'm just like,
Yeah.
and then Andrew was telling me about his hard drive kicking. One of his hard drives isn't working last
Oh,
time. That stressed me
not
out because
not
I'm like,
just
all
one of
my
my hard
work's on
drives.
this.
It's the hard drive that has like all of my art files, like any kind of like tax stuff, like video stuff, like any of that stuff. It's all on that hard drive because it's the storage hard drive, and it all is that
And
hard drive's
that,
kaput.
how
It's
much of it was
thankfully
backed
like
up to
all.
Carbonite?
Oh, so I checked last night. It looks like pretty much the entire drive. Like I did, in fact, tell the Carbonite to back up the entire drive.
They'll send
So
you a
that's
hard
good at
drive.
least. If no, only if you're on the whatever the middle tier plan is. I'm on
Oh,
the basic plan, so I just have to download it all, which is it's fine. Um, but
Yeah. That's
after
what I set up to.
yeah, uh,
are you guys
yeah,
both on
no.
Carbonite? Because I'm on Dropbox. I've been thinking. So I was thinking about dumping Dropbox, and I've got a RAID
Well,
system that I'm
wait.
building.
Does Dropbox do you have to back that up yourself manually?
So what it is it's synced to my back. So I have an SSD in here that's backing up all my information, right?
Mhm.
And Dropbox is connected to that. So anytime I save, I'm technically saving to that hard drive, and it saves to Dropbox. Now,
Gotcha.
Nice. I
so
mean, that's
far the hard drive's
effectively
work.
what I'm doing.
Yeah, and then
Uh,
my friend built me a RAID system here that we need to connect and get going. But it's basically a backup
yeah.
of a backup of a backup.
I
I'm
think
paranoid. It's all technology. It just fails anytime.
I'd have to double check with you, but I'm pretty sure Carbonite pound for pound is like you're gonna get way more bang for your
I've been thinking about
at least
switching
in
to
terms of like
Carbonite.
storage space because I think it's like 8. I think like the basic plan is 8 or like $10 a month, but the
It's
storage
cheap.
space is unlimited.
I mean, I would do
Like
the second
there's
tier
no
so I get a
cap on it.
hard
I
drive.
have a terabyte and a half backed up on it, and it's no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, this hard drive's. I went and checked my drive after you and I spoke last night. I'm like, man, my drive's full. I gotta like.
Yeah.
I deleted all the videos from our past episodes, by the way. So if YouTube ever goes away, bye. Because in my head I was like, what am I holding on
Uh,
to all these videos for?
Well, okay, so this was actually a whole nother thing about it because, like, I have a lot of videos, like old art videos and stuff. I'm fairly certain I cannot get again. If that's the case, like some old like Sterling Hunley demos, like what stuff from like way back when like conceptart.org existed and all that, right? And it's like
Right.
those videos either they're no one's held on to them or like you can't find them anywhere kind of deal. So and I am definitely like a digital hoarder. Like I don't like the idea of like, oh yeah, it's digital, so therefore it goes. It's like no, no, no. If anything, that makes it like more precious to me because it's like, yeah, that digital stuff is like so ephemeral and it can go away in an instant. Like at
Yeah.
least I know like okay, like my originals. For the most part, I understand like okay, unless it's like a fire or a flood, if I'm around, my originals are probably still around. Barring like I'm not using like crazy fugitive supplies or anything like that, like dyes or anything like that. So as long as I'm safe, my originals are likely safe.
Yes.
My digital files though, it's like, oh yeah, today's a Tuesday. I'm just gonna fucking crap out on you. And then it's like, oh no, this is like 20 years of work gone.
Right.
Yeah, it's spooky for sure.
Yeah.
That's I have a friend who he backs everything up to the hard drives, and then he still owns an optical drive. So he burns everything to a DVD, and then he takes that DVD. It's
Yeah.
not even in the house with him. It's like in a safety deposit box somewhere. And I'm just like, at first I was like,
Working at
that's a
the
specific
Pentagon.
level of crazy. Yeah, exactly. He goes
Honestly,
like
if
5 levels down.
I would probably do the same if I
I don't
set
own an
aside enough
optical
funds.
drive. When was the last time you owned a drive that burned CDs?
Well, even then, like CDs and DVDs and all that, like those have like a shelf life of like
Correct.
25 to I think 50 years is the max if you're like taking pristine care of them and everything. But they suffer disc rot and stuff. Like say, do you remember when they used to sell movie DVDs
The
two side?
Divx. The Divx.
No, like just like even if you buy like say Willy Wonka or whatever, and it would have like the movie on one side and the bonus features on the other side, like that particular kind of like burning where they did the front back, like that's super susceptible to disc rot, where it just decides to delaminate both sides, and it's like,
They
yeah,
make
fuck you.
I mean, it's like a record essentially, right? If you play a record over and over and over, eventually the quality gets
Yeah.
fucked because it's the needles hitting that
It
over and over.
it
and
is
over.
still wild to me that like the most reliable method we have is magnetic tape. Bar none. It is the most reliable digital method storage. I think it has like a shelf life right now of like 100 to 200 years
I've got
if it's
VHS
kept in
tapes
like
that
pristine conditions. Yeah,
I should
your
get rid
VH
of.
is definitely not that. It's like no, we're talking like they
You're talking about the
th-
drives they use at like in IT departments.
yeah, like
Yeah.
a hard ack or whatever. Like
Right.
the kind of thing where it's like yeah, the tapes get stored in like a super cool environment, like no light whatsoever. They hold
Yeah.
like petabytes of information. Like the amount of like that you can fit on one of those tapes is insane. But yeah, they got like an insane shelf life, and probably to the point where it's like by the time it becomes an issue, we hopefully will have something different solved. And then it's like, oh yeah, no, that's not a problem. We don't have to worry about
They're gonna be storing
that
shit
deal.
in space. They're gonna be like, it's on a satellite. All your stuff's on a satellite.
Or like in like a crystal or something.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that would be awesome. You just carry it around your neck. Somehow you would lose that crystal in this mess over here.
Oh, for sure.
Um,
Everybody needs like a weird vault in their basement.
I saw
Exactly.
so actually like so I saw you know how like most hard drives nowadays are like the newer hard drives that they're selling are the NVMEs where it's just basically like that
Correct.
circuit chip thing. It's not like a physical disk or anything. So I saw basically someone this is for like the use case for this is only for like server migration where it's like, hey, we need to transfer our contents from one Amazon warehouse service to another Amazon warehouse service, and downloading is going to take too long. So we have this briefcase. It's not even like a large briefcase. It's like that size or whatever, like maybe like 11 by 14 size briefcase. And it's something like I think it was something like 300 terabytes of information on it, but it's all those NVMe disks just
Yes.
sandwiched
Next
in
to
there
each
and like
other.
arrayed. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's insane. And you just plug that thing in, you download your entire server, hop on a plane and take it to your other server and upload
mean-
it.
Basically is a server just with a handle on top, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, God, you fit that whole thing into 11 by 14. That's insane.
I mean, think about your cell phone. Like this thing holds a couple gigs, right?
Yeah.
And
Like, well, it depends. Yeah, at least 60
it's
gigabytes or
legit
so.
Star Trek technology. I mean, I just remember as a kid watching.
We're so
like,
dated at this point.
yeah, it is. You're like, that's an
Speaking on
iPad. Okay,
transporters or
I've had one.
replicators, like, oh my God.
You can't have transporters, man. People will get all. You've seen The Fly. You know what's gonna happen.
No, what was it? So I'm actually rewatching Star Trek right now, and well, no, we
The
haven't.
original or Generations?
Next Generations, and we haven't run across it yet. I think it's like the third Barclay episode. But you know, he has like 3 or 4 episodes of Barclay, and they're always kind of like, yeah, these are kind of fucked up things when you think about it. Like the first one is his holodeck obsession. The second one is he gets a supercomputer brain as a result of
Right.
like an alien fucking with him. But there is another one that's coming up where he's like, I don't like to do transporters because they kill you. And everyone's like, "No, you're worrying yourself, Barkley. Don't worry about it." And he's like, "No, they kill you. I'm pretty sure. Like, there's not me there. It's a duplicate. You got it. You're shit." And then eventually, the climax is he has to get over his fear of getting the transporter, which I think is a very valid fear
Right.
of the whole
I mean,
thing.
it's got to essentially take your molecules apart and put your molecules
Well,
back together.
especially because like I don't remember if it's in that season or if it's in a earlier season, but there's that one episode where Riker meets himself that was like a transporter buffer pattern that got stuck on a station for like 15 years ago. And then he meets himself and it's like he's the same age, but they've effectively become two different people. And
I don't remember that.
It's
yeah,
trippy. That's the only way it could work, right? They have to like break you down and put you back together on the other side.
yeah. And
So
it's one of those things with like, Star Trek will swing for those kind of ideas, but because it's serialized television, it really only means like, hey, you only have like to explore this. Because
you can't
next
make
hour
him
it's going to be a
like
whole
a serial
different
killer.
thing.
So that I
Well,
did have a
so
question here for Chris that said, "What would parallel universe Chris do if you weren't doing stuff from Magic?" That was a question that
oh,
was given to
that's
me.
a good segue to it. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, realistically, I have no idea because I was the kid that was obsessively drawing from as long as I can remember. Like it was
Yeah.
just
Mm-hmm.
drawing monster trucks when I was 3, you know.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like it's an outlet that I really need, and if I didn't have an outlet like that, and I never found anything else that I was decent at, like it probably would have been a bad road. Like, I don't know, drugs, jail.
Wow, it's just that bad, huh? You're like, I'd be a
I don't
bank
know,
robber.
man. Like, I feel like I have this sort of equilibrium with like making stuff that's kind of like a healthy addiction. It's like
Yeah.
sort of like an achievement addiction in a way. But I feel like
Yeah.
if I didn't have that, it would turn into a different kind that would probably be an issue. Yeah, I don't know. I'm one of those kind of like twitchy people. It's not good at sitting still. I get like quickly
I know that.
dissatisfied with things. I get bored.
Yeah, I used to
Yeah.
have a
I
hard
feel that.
time. I have multiple friends who are always like, get some rest, sit still, do something relaxing for a minute, and I'm just, I just don't know how to. And
Yeah.
nowadays, because I'm a little tired with the kids, sometimes I'd be like, I want to sit still for like 10 minutes. My brain is always like, you need to finish this thing, but you want to go do that thing. Like
Yeah. I have a pet theory that I've run by a few people recently.
let's hear it.
Uh, is like I definitely am on like the sort of ADHD spectrum or whatever. Like I medicate with coffee, but I'm that way. My dad's that way. My brother's that way. My dad was a photographer. My brother's a musician.
Cool.
I do this. Every other person I know that does this for a living is like that,
Yeah.
one way or another. And like, so the pet theory is that it's sort of a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, is the creativity the symptom or the coping mechanism for what's wrong with you? Or is it just a positive thing that you make? It's like, to
Ooh.
me, it feels a little bit like self-soothing in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was telling my therapist the other day, like also most artists see therapists, and I'm shocked to hear that. Um, I was like, I feel like if I don't do something artistic in the day, whether it's like drawing a cup, or playing my guitar, something that feeds that creativity side, the creative side. Like I feel like then I feel like weird the rest, most of the day until I've gotten to it, right? Always like, I don't know how to describe
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
You're kind of
for
edging on
sure.
it with
For
that
me,
statement.
it's like the creativity is definitely like a big part of it for me, but it's like no matter what, I have to be super busy with something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm like when I have a down day, when I'm really tired from painting and I stand when I work long days, sometimes I just get burned out. I'll like my ideal day off is like Dark Souls. playing Dark Souls for like 10
Bro, I am
hours,
not good at that
or
game.
Bloodborne or Elden Ring. Like it's for me, it's like the challenge, like
Sure.
doing something hard and then progressing through it is like that's my weird little
No, I play
obsession.
video games. I've been playing a lot of Helldivers 2 lately.
Oh, I hear that's awesome.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's so fun. It's just goofy fun. It's nothing like it's it's like like you play I play a lot of Destiny with my friends. And that's got like a story, and you can do like there's some mechanics to how you build your characters out, and the build is like building out your D&D character almost, right? Like if you build them a specific way, you've got these special set of skills that come into play when you do a raid, which is something that exists in that game, and I like D&D, so all that stuff kind of vibed with me. Helldivers, you're literally just this soldier fighting for democracy, trying to like make sure aliens don't take over these planets and stuff. But if you play with the right group of friends, like if you play with serious friends, it's no fun. You got to play with friends who are willing to say this is just a video game.
Yeah. No, I get it. That sounds awesome. I've never been a big one for like the online play.
Sure.
Myself, I did some raids on Destiny 2, but like 90% of my Destiny 2 experience was just me playing alone.
Okay.
Because I just enjoyed it, but I'm more like a single player kind of guy. But yeah, like I'm on my third playthrough of Elden Ring right now. So I got a different build.
Looks beautiful.
To get back to that. Yeah, I'm so behind on it.
I want to play Elden Ring because it looks like it would give me all these ideas from the creative side for like world building.
Yeah,
I'm not good at those games.
It is a little more accessible than some of the other games from that studio.
Those games are. I played the first one. What's it called?
Demon.
I don't remember. I played.
Or,
Demon Souls. Maybe I played at my friend's house. I lasted 30 minutes. I kept dying, kept going through it again, kept dying, going through it again. I'm like, oh, is this what you do? And he's like, yeah, you're supposed to learn from this. And at some point, I was like, freaked out and just stressed out. I'm just like, I'm not like some of the things that were showing up. I was like, I don't want to fight this thing. It's like, like I would run in the real world. Why am I not running right now? Like, so.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about that. The first one of these games from Software that I ever played was Bloodborne, and it was right after it came out in 2015, and that was right when I started doing concept art pushes at Wizards. So at that point, I was still living in Eastern Washington, so I'd have to drive over to the west side, and they'd put me up in the hotel next to WotC, or WotC old offices. And me and whoever else, they flew in. So it was fun. It was kind of like going to camp or whatever, because there's a bunch of people that aren't from here all like getting together and hanging out for 3 weeks. And one night we wound up kind of having a party at I think it was at Richard Witter's house, who he used to be the lead art director for D&D. But it was literally just like they lived, him and Jeremy Jarvis, he used to be the main art director for Magic. Like they just lived in these apartments that weren't far away from WotC, so we'd all go over there and hang out. And Richard was working on a project for D&D at the time, and he had Pendleton Ward in. He'd flown him in, and that's the guy that did like Adventure.
Yeah.
And really cool stuff. And Pendleton was there, like in his apartment, and we were all just like drinking beer and whatever. And so Richard just was like, I heard Dark Souls is cool. You want to get this? And Pendleton was really experienced playing these Dark Souls style games, and we were all just getting our teeth kicked in trying to play this game. And Pendleton's like, no, you guys don't know how to play. And he sat down and he's like, this is what you do. And he had all these crazy strategies for like, you don't fight everybody. You run and you explore and you dodge and you kill the guys you need to kill, but otherwise you just try. It's about like dodging and moving and being smart, exploring that way. And like it was like these gears clicked in my brain, and I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. And then like it wound up being super fun. We played that a bunch. Also, like he was a crazy Guitar Hero maniac. Like,
dude, I missed
he was beating everybody's ass at Guitar Hero. And then it got to the point where there were people like smoking cigarettes out on the deck, and Pendleton went out on the deck and closed the sliding doors so he couldn't playing just visually, looking through the sliding glass door on the guitar.
Oh my gosh.
That's when you know you play too much, right?
Yeah. Well, I think he's got this kind of a unique brain setup. I don't know what his deal is, but he's just like laser focused on that stuff.
That's cool. Yeah,
Very
I mean, I've got a
impressive.
friend, the same guy I told you that backs up the stuff to the discs and stuff. Like I remember we played like we bought an old Nintendo system on eBay, changed the ZIF connector, and played Zelda, the first one. This dude had the
Oh
whole
man.
game memorized. He like knew how to go through all the dungeons really quick. He knew level by level.
Mhm.
He's just cooking through it. And I'm just like, dude. And he's like, you don't remember any of this? I'm like, I played this when I was like 9. I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
like,
there's some muscle memory stuff like Super Mario Brothers. I still remember like all the tricks, tips, and tricks for that one and Super Mario Brothers 3. Like
I
those
don't
are
remember
just
any of this
committed to my
stuff.
memory, like in a
The
brain.
later ones I got that with, but not like I mean, God, the OG Zelda came out in like '87. Like
Yeah,
I was like 3, you know.
like I was like, I don't remember any of the stuff in that game. I remember like rooms as I'm getting to them. I remember things like if you type in Justin Bailey in Metroid, you get all the weapons and no helmet. It's the first time you figure out that Samus is a woman. Like
Oh,
what's happening?
it wasn't there a level where she like runs around outside of the suit or something?
Yeah, I
That's
think
that's I think in the is that might be in like Super Metroid or
yeah,
something later on.
it's in the Super Nintendo one. In the original Nintendo, Justin Bailey was a coder or somebody involved in the game. You type that in, you start the game off with no helmet on and pretty much all the stuff you need. And you can go like and then you just leave the room, go straight to the top and you fight Mother Brain. I'm just like
Because yeah, otherwise you don't figure out until the very end of the game that Samus is a woman.
that shit broke the
Right.
internet, I bet. I didn't
Big
have the internet
reveal.
back then. I just remember people finding out. My friends are all like, "What?" I'm like, "Why are you so mad?" Like
Honestly, I don't know how you would be able to tell with like the 6 or 8 pixels
8-bit
they would use for
graphics.
that. Yeah.
The hair. It was the hair.
Yeah. Like it just looked like a little alien running
Yeah,
around.
exactly.
Pretty much. Or it's like when you figure out the code for Contra, right? And you're because like you play Contra for the first time, you're like, how the flip is anyone beating this game with 3 lives? Seems so
Yeah.
impossible.
The
Like,
Konami code.
yes, and I'm just like, and I remember the day my friend figured that out, and I'm just like, we're gonna beat this game today. Like today's the day. Like,
My brother
um,
was super obsessed with Contra. It was
dude,
just
I
like
love
never
that
ending.
game.
Always die.
I always you ever have that friend who you each got 99 lives. I had a friend who died so many times he would take your lives. Like you can
Really?
do that, right? Like when you keep coming
Oh
back, you
my
take from
god,
the
yeah,
other play.
he's
I'm like, how are you
how,
so
how the
bad
hell
at
did he burn
this?
through 99 lives?
Sucks at video
That's
games.
Yeah.
That's how. Um, I can ask you a couple more questions if you want from this list. Um,
sure.
so I was first. I'll start with best piece of advice you ever got.
Ooh.
It's a tough one.
Man, that's a broad one. Well, the first one that comes to mind is I don't know who gave it to me. It might have been one of my teachers, like Chuck Pyle or Kazu Sano, one of the people at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. But the advice was never. Basically, what they were saying was always try your best with a job when it comes to illustration. Like whether they're paying you $200 or paying you $5,000, like within reason, give it 100%, because it's not just about like you and them. It's about word getting around. Like you've only got one reputation, and I feel like a lot of like how I was able to like climb, as lucky as I was, through to like getting like really cool Magic assignments and D&D covers and book covers I've done in the past and stuff, was literally just like swinging for the fences as hard as I could, no matter what it was. Because you never know, like art directors move around. Like I did work for Taylor Ingerson when he was at Fantasy Flight, like cheap, low level stuff. And then, here we are, and I'm working for him literally right now
Right at
on
WotC.
like high level Magic stuff. So,
Do you have a cover on one of these D&D books? One of
yeah,
all of
I've only done one.
these?
It was the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons.
Oh
Came out a
yeah,
couple of years ago.
I got that.
It's got a
That's
couple
cool.
of dragons fighting on the cover. Yeah, that was one of the biggest paintings I've ever done. I think it's the biggest one I ever did for like commission work. It's like 30 by 36 or something like that. Freaking
So
huge.
I was gonna ask you, since you mentioned dragons, about your Tiamat.
Oh yeah.
Did your head explode? I'm not gonna bring up the numbers. Everyone can look it up if they want to. But I feel like that. I thought that was probably one of the biggest sales I've ever seen for a magic painting, but it's not. Um,
No,
it's
no, but
pretty
that I mean,
high.
it was up there for me. That well, it was
Yeah,
Tiamat and the Gold Dragon. There's just something about that particular set, the Magic D&D crossover set, where it brought collectors out of the woodwork. And we auction our originals on the MTG Art Market Facebook group, which is like a hub for this kind of stuff.
yeah.
So, like, I thought like, oh, there'll probably be a lot of interest because it's Tiamat or whatever, but I had no idea that between that and the adult gold dragon, it would be nearly as much as it was. I
I didn't
was just
realize there was
shocked
a
when I.
second one. I didn't realize there was a
What's
second
that?
piece. I didn't realize there was a
Yeah,
second piece in there.
yeah, yeah. I did adult gold dragon as well.
That's
It's like a
cool,
gold
man.
dragon coming in and uh, like dragging the end of its wing across a lake, sort of like a sunset gold painting.
Oh wow,
That's
But yeah,
cool.
no, I was very pleased. It was a big,
You
it
should
was a
be.
lot of
I
help
mean, I was watching
being
those
out.
numbers climb, and I was just like, "Holy mother!" Like, good for
Yeah,
you,
but
man.
it's funny too. Like when you have that stuff happen, like it's awesome,
Yeah.
zero complaints. But then you're like, I have to ship this to somebody. I have to figure out how to insure this. Like, am I going to put this in a master pack box? Am I going to put this in a crate? Like, I used a crating service maybe like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, when I sold one of the Ugin paintings I did for Magic. That was, mid six figures, like low to mid, and
Hmm.
I was just so terrified something was going to happen to it. Like I paid quite a bit to a company that usually moves things for galleries and
Sure.
museums across
oh,
the US. They literally, it's door to door. Like you hand them a box, and that guy drives across the US and he drops boxes at the places where he's told to drop them.
holy shit!
But yeah, there's a lot of that like hair raising sort of back end stress about just like making sure the logistics work out when you're like, oh, suddenly this item that I had no idea was going to be worth this is like really important, and I don't want anything to happen to it.
I assume it all worked out.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't lost one yet. The only paintings I've had damaged, there were a couple minor damage pieces from really early on in my Magic career when I was pretty poor and I had zero idea what I was doing. So, shipping things internationally in boxes that were regrettable. But
I've
we've
only
learned a
I've only
lot.
ever
We've come a long way.
I've only ever had one of the big metal pieces I sell are really hard to bend. Like, I can whack you in the head with it and it probably would not bend. That's how like stiff they are. But I had a
Nice.
customer who ordered one at Gen Con 2 years ago, and it showed up and it was like bent. And I was just like,
What happened?
how? And it was shipped directly from the vendor that makes them, which is a photo studio. So it comes in like a robust box. And I was just
Right.
like, the guy was super chill. He was like a metalsmith or metal worker of some sort. He's like, I can just hammer this out. Don't worry about it. I'm just like, no, don't touch it. It's insured.
Yeah,
Like they're gonna send you a new one, and because it's
for
like a
sure.
$1,000 piece, right? And I was just like, just leave it. They'll come and get it. And he sent me photos. It looked almost like the UPS driver like put it against a wall and then drove the truck on top of it or something. Because it was just like it's an
Yeah.
impossible bend,
Uh,
And I was just
Like
like,
sometimes I wonder if like a forklift is involved in some of these horror stories,
yeah, just like what did you guys do to this? But yeah, I remember watching the auction for that, and I was just like, this is awesome because I was like, I heard like it was like one specific dude who loved D&D and he was just buying. He was trying anyway to buy as much of it as he could.
Yeah, yeah, there's a big collector out there who was he wasn't the only one that was bidding. I mean, obviously it takes at
Sure,
least two to tango with that stuff. But
right?
yeah, he wound up with both of mine and
That's cool.
Tyler's um Dritz
Oh, the
piece that
Driss, yeah.
went for even more. And what's funny is the third one I did for that set was a portrait of a or a painting of a hill giant. It's called
Okay.
Hill Giant Herd Gorger, I think. And the whole gag was Zach assigned it to me, and it's a portrait of Richard Witters, the guy that I was talking about before, that used to be
I've
the
seen this.
head art director for D&D. And that one, like, I have no idea what it would have gone for, but I just showed up at his house with it and gave it to him.
He was, I take smart school with Scott, and Richard's twice now has been an AD at the end to like go
Oh,
over our
sweet.
stuff. So, they were talking about that piece. I remember it's pretty funny because we all saw it in class. Um,
Nice.
so,
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
um, so the polar opposite of the first question, the question I asked you a minute ago was, what's if you have something to say to this, which is, what's the worst piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Worst piece, what?
Worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, it's more just like attitudes.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people get sort of sent down a bad road in this industry because it is hard. And so you wind up getting advice from other people that have had a hard time about how you need to be just kind of like shrewd and like just trying to find a lot of shortcuts,
Right.
whether it's with your work or with business stuff or being too pushy with clients. It's like, oh, you got to like fight back and tell them what's what. Like people that try to kind of like take control of a situation or try to be too dominant when dealing with an art director or just hard to work with. Like, so I wouldn't say it's a specific piece of advice, but I mean, there's basically like three things you need in this. It's being good at art, being easy to work with, and turning your shit in on time. And like those are all basically equally important. Like you have to have all of them or it falls apart sooner or later. Like if you're awesome and you're nice, your work's awesome, you're easy to work with, but you're consistently late, it may take a while, but the clients will start backing off on you.
Sure.
And like, I mean, I think so much of my success has just been like being easy to work with, like on concept pushes, being fun to work with.
Yeah.
Like when you're at an event, LXCon or whatever, just being like a good hang and like meeting new people, being open. Like I think oftentimes people can sort of get into this like, what's in this conversation for me kind of
Right.
mindset. That's
you see a lot of that at LuxCon, right? You're just like, don't do it.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, it's tough out there. And I also get like sometimes when I say things like this to other artists, I get the like, well, it's not as easy for the rest of us, Chris. Like that kind of stuff.
It's like,
Because,
oh, you're Chris Rahn. I'm just like, he's
I've
just
had
another dude.
a lot of success, but like I was just some kid that they
Right.
hired out of art school at the beginning. Like I was terrified for the first 10 years I was working on Magic that this was going to be the last piece. This was the one that was going to make them hate me and never call me again. Like we all have that. Well, I don't know if it's low self-esteem or whatever, but those voices in the back of our heads. But like the community of artists that I've gotten to know doing this has done a lot for my ability to get through and persevere and get where I am, because like it kind of feels like a small town where in general the people that do all right with it, the people that wind up sticking with Magic for a while, like we all have a lot of kind of similar personality traits, and it's kind of nice to chat with other people that have the same issues. And there's like Discord groups where you can like trade, like amongst the artists, like just trade notes on this or that, or what kind of printer are you using, that kind of thing. Yeah, like I don't know, I think, I mean, for me it was really tough at the beginning because it was like pre-social media. I started on Magic in 2007, so I didn't know anybody aside from like most of the kids that I went to art school with, that a lot of them didn't wind up sticking with art at all, wound up doing something else. So it was just like me and some really, really short emails from art directors when I, turn it in. Looks great, thanks. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'll hear from them in 6 weeks.
Right.
And I have to turn in more stuff. But yeah, like the isolation was the spooky part. So I really do value the community.
I think Yeah, I think the community is important. A lot of like my career, I think, is from knowing the right people who have like nothing to gain by helping me, but help regardless. Andrew helps me all the
Yeah,
time with stuff, by the way.
for sure.
So like it's
I mean,
like
we've all
basically
been
like
through a lot of the same stuff, so it
yeah,
just makes sense.
like and I've met on on the opposite side. I've dealt with artists who are just like they're in their own heads, like not willing to like bend over to help you or even because like what's
Yeah.
in it for me if I help you, which is like the shitty attitude to have, which I don't think anyone should have. But
Honestly, I remember running into that more within the comic industry than I did within
yeah,
like the more general illustration industry, which actually going back, I've known quite a few comic artists that have skirted by on being very good and very nice to work with, but are absolutely dog shit when it comes to timelines. Like
I would
there's a
never want to work
lot
with
of work
artists.
still. That's just their whole bread and butter. Where it's like, yeah, it's going to be good, but that deadline they have listed in the comic trade, like, give it you like a year. Add a year onto that. That's probably when it's, which is like insane to me. Like that was always been. Yeah, there's just some people within the comic industry that are absolute rock stars can get away with murder like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I know a couple of people in our industry that,
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
probably it
they
always seems
do
like it
that.
was
It's
less.
it's more the
Much better.
ADD thing than anything else, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've met a couple people in our industry. I won't name names, but it's just like, but I'm also like anyone who knows me knows like if push comes to shove, I'll literally just be like, "Why are you being a dick?" Like, obviously you don't want to be my friend, so I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat what I'm saying to you at this point. But
Yeah, for sure. But
and I
also, like,
was
specifically, I mean, I've spent a lot of time with magic artists in particular, just from going to events over the past. I mean, I think this is my 17th year working on
oh
magic right
damn,
now. So it's like, it's just crazy to me how many of them I get along with super well. It's almost like it kind of funnels down a personality type
yeah,
of
it's like
this
family
sort of like
almost, right?
lonely, like hardworking nerds, that are a little like self-deprecating.
Do you have any magic specific tattoos? That's not a list of questions.
No,
It's a random question I just came up with.
I don't have magic specific ones. I've got this one on the back of my hand.
It's
It's like a
cool.
kind of a psychedelic raven, and this one on my forearm. Both of these Alex did, my wife. She used to be a tattoo artist before she
Oh
was a
wow.
Oh, cool.
magic artist. So she still has her kit and she'll like do stuff on me or whatever, but friends.
I feel
But
like you'd be like,
yeah, nothing
why?
magic specific, but broad fantasy stuff. Like this one's a sword going through a dragon's skull, so
I just meant like I feel
magic.
like when you hit like 20 years, might be some kind of milestone tattoo you want to get. I don't know what that would be though.
Yeah, well, I mean, magic or not, I think they're just going to keep adding up until I'm covered. So we'll see.
True.
It's funny. I,
True.
I get the itch about once every couple years, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I got them all up on my arms and stuff, and I'm trying to, my shoulders. I'm not running out of space, but I don't want to like. I've got one on my chest, but I don't want to like. I got a friend who's like tattooed up and down, and I'm
Oh
just
Yeah,
like,
really?
I don't really need to get tattoos where people can't see them. Like
that's
this
my
one was
thing
just.
too. Like the first one I got was this one when I was 17, and
What is that? What is that?
it's like a Celtic trio
Got
life
it.
thing. My brother and I got it together, and I realized like I don't wear tank tops,
Right.
so
Yeah, I've
you
got
know.
like I've got a Jedi symbol on this. Nobody sees it. And I've got the
Oh,
Critical Role one you can see once in a while. But I've
oh
got a
shit.
Mandalorian here. No one ever sees that unless I'm on the beach or something. But I like
Yeah,
the Mighty
totally.
Nine. This one, I really love this one. And then the
That's
first one I ever
awesome.
got though was the Ka symbol from Dark Tower.
What's that from?
Ka from Dark Stephen King's Dark Tower. Dark Tower
Oh,
series.
sweet. Yeah, I
It's one
love
of my
that
favorite.
series. I've read it a
Yeah.
couple times.
So I got this one, and my friend had been like, "You're gonna get the itch. You're gonna want more." And I was like, "I think I'll be good with one." He was right. You know, um, I'm like you just said. I'm hoping to work with Jason Peterson. If you know Jason, he does amazing
Yeah,
tattooing.
yeah, I've actually
So
met him a couple times.
I think about designing something that goes from here down the arm, but that'll be a bigger. He's like, that'll be 2 sessions, and he lives in Arizona, so it's a whole thing. And I'm just like, I'm willing to
Nice.
fly to Arizona if I have to figure this out. Like, um,
Yeah, I mean, it's a life a life commitment. I feel like it's
Yeah.
worth it for stuff like that.
I just want to
Yeah,
get it before I'm like so old it's not
Himalayan
worth it.
also. What's that?
I just said I want to get to all the tattoos before I'm so old I don't want to get any more, you know.
Yeah, before this, you have to like stretch the skin flat to do
No, my
it.
skin's not gonna shrivel, dude. I'm Asian. I'm gonna look like this when I'm
Oh, it's
100.
true. Yeah, no, I'm gonna be a pasty prune for sure.
So, um, I can throw one more question at you if you want, or we can move on to the last segment.
Sure, yeah, feel free.
So I like this one because it's like it says, "Tell me something we don't know about you." Like we know
Ooh,
most of things about you as far as being an artist.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I already brought up the Dark
Dark
Souls,
Souls, yeah.
Bloodborne obsession.
Let me see. Is there another one on this list?
What else? Oh, just trying to think of what would be interesting. But well, I mean, I don't know if people know this, but I grew up in the middle of nowhere. I grew up in a town after the age of 7 when my folks split. Me and my brother and my mom moved back to her hometown
Okay.
in Southeast Washington. It's a town called Dayton, Washington. That's 2,800 people.
Oh wow, that's tiny.
That's
Yeah.
And the
small.
nearest town is like 1,300 people, 10 miles away. And then there's a town of like 800 people.
Oh my
And
god, it
then
just gets
10
smaller
more
and smaller.
miles, you get
Oh
to
wow.
Walla Walla, which is like 20 or 30,000 people, something like that. We had to drive there to see a movie. So, pre-social media, pre-internet, like
Right.
I was I think that was a pretty big factor in my early obsession with drawing because it was a split between me being super bored, being kind of a like suburban Bay Area kid before that, and
Mhm.
like there just not being anything to do there, but also like I did not fit in at all. Like it took me a long time to like meet anybody that I could hang out with. It's just a bunch of like really tough like rural kids that already had their little cliques.
Right.
So yeah, I think I actually credit that in a weird way, as miserable as it was, to like sort of driving me into what became an obsession with art.
Yeah, I mean, it was your
Yeah.
escape, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how kids today get good at this. Like I see them, but like there's just so many distractions now. Like I didn't even have MTV. Like we had like 20 channels, you know.
I mean, I was like, I was in Texas 2 weeks ago, and I was telling one of my cousins about how, like, they're on their cell phones all the time. They're literally like, we're gonna meet at this spot, then we're gonna go to this spot, and everything's happening on this device, you know. And I'm like, and they're like,
Mhm.
and I was like, when I was your age, I had to like call a friend on a phone. I used to have the old school rotary phones, and
Ooh.
then I had to be like meet at like if we're gonna meet at the mall, so you had to pick a specific spot in the mall at a specific
Mhm.
time. And you just went and waited. You just stood there hoping your friend would fucking show up on time.
Yeah.
And if they didn't, you're just like, well, I'm just gonna keep waiting. And if 20 minutes went by, you're like, something happened to them. They got jumped. I grew up in Chicago, so I'd be like, I got jumped on his way here. Like what's
Yeah,
happening?
yeah, yeah. But there is something to be said, and I mean, like, we sound like a bunch of old boomers at this point, but there is something to be said for like not just the boredom, but like the sort of living in the present that was just being a
Yeah.
kid with like I'm just standing here and this is my bike and I'm bored and I'm just gonna ride it until I find something to do, you
Dude, I
know?
used to like I thought I used to hang out at the park till like my dad would literally just be like, get out of the house, come home for dinner, right? And I'm talking
Mhm.
like age 9, age 10. You can't do that with kids these days. They'd never come back, like
Yeah, yeah, no, for
they
sure. Like
forget how to get home.
when I was 10, like me and my friends used to ride the back roads to my grandparents' house outside of that tiny town. They were just like gravel roads, and it was like 7 miles through wheat fields in the summer, like up and down hills. There were like wheat trucks going by.
Oh
Jeez,
wow.
yeah.
Sometimes I was wearing a helmet. It's just like I miss it, but it was also like kind of feral in a
Right.
way that's weird and interesting now. It's like kids are kind of more domesticated, I guess, but they're
Everything's
safer.
they're safer to a degree. Things have been simplified. Like I told him how I used to go to the comic book store. Like I would, I would go to the comic book store when the sun was still out. So I cut through the park. People are there. I felt safe. I was a fat little kid, okay? And I was like pushing over 200 pounds. So I'd cut through the park and go to the comic book store, and I would have to come back before the sun set because people would still be at the park. I remember still one time when sun set, and I was like, shit, it's dark outside. And the safe play would have been to take the border edge sidewalk of the park, a long way home. But fat little Allen was like, I'm going to cut through the park, which is now dark and full of gangs. And I've said the story before, but I got lucky. The gang that saw me, I didn't run. They saw me. I was like, there's no point in running. They're looking right at me, you know? And the guy walked over, and I thought he's going to steal all. My thought wasn't he's going to stab me or kill me. I was like, he's going to steal all the comic books in my backpack, you know? And he was just like,
because it's like treasure to you.
Right. I'm like a little hobbit, you know? He's like, what are you doing in here? And I was just like, I'm just trying to get home. I was cutting through the park. And he's like, you know you're not supposed to be in here at night. And he calmly put his hand on my shoulder, turned me around, and walked me out of the park, like to the edge. And he's like, go. He's like, don't let me see you in here again.
Like gang members.
I was just like, I ran into the nicest gang member in that park, apparently. And I never told my dad. I was late for dinner, so I was in trouble already. And he was just like, you know, but like I was trying to explain to my cousins, I'm like, you guys don't understand how easy. You have fucking Amazon where shit shows up to your house after a day or two. Whereas I had to like save up, hope the thing I wanted was at the store if I rode my bike all the way over there. And if it wasn't, I just came home. You know, like
yeah, like you have to go there to find out if it's there.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
yeah, I mean, like, something I'm jealous of though is like I didn't have access to anything. Like I didn't even like maybe I would have been an anime dork. I didn't even know anime was a thing because like it wasn't on
anime
my
till
TV.
I was like 12.
Yeah, it's just
like my first video game system was a Commodore 64 that my cousin gifted to me when I was like 10 or 11.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Like my dad, you know, my parents both worked 2 jobs. There was no way they're going to buy me like a video game system, right? So everything I had was a hand-me-down, and I was happy for it, right? It's like a cool new thing I've never, you know, my first set of like toys where my cousin decided he went off to college and was like, I'm too old for these toys. And he had a box of G.I. Joes, Transformers, and Thundercats. And he was like, do you want them? Awesome. You know, so I got like this like shoebox full of toys that I had forever. And I still remember the first day I got Nintendo. Like I saved, and my dad helped pay for half of it. And this Nintendo was like $100 back in the day, right? That was expensive for its time. Now
I mean, it's kind of like a PS5 now. Like with inflation, it's probably comparable. You know, like $500 or whatever it is.
But remember, like Toys R Us used to have like a ticketing system, right? You have to get the ticket, pay for it,
Christ, yeah.
And then you got to go to that like vault where there's a guy standing back there, and his only job is to take your ticket and go find the product for you. You know, and I
that was not how my Toys R Us experience was, man. That might have been a Chicago thing.
It's probably a Chicago thing. Your experience is probably like, here it is, just take it off the shelf, sir. You know,
well, mine was like visiting my dad, you know, every once in a while, and he was still in San Francisco doing photography, so it was like suddenly going to like the inner city from the middle of nowhere, but it was still like, you know, drive out to the burbs and go to Toys R Us or whatever.
I mean, I still remember the first time my dad took us to the suburbs, which was when we started looking at homes in the suburbs. The Chicago suburbs are like, it's like night and day, because you're literally leaving the city into like this area full of these nice homes.
Yeah, I've heard that. Like, depending on which direction you go.
Yes, it depends on which direction you go in. It can get worse if you go in the wrong direction, you know. So
it's like that in the Bay Area too.
Well, I feel like those are the experiences that like. There's a reason we're a little bit more. I don't want to use the word tougher, but I feel like we come from a cut where it's like, you probably shouldn't fuck with us too much. You know, like we don't bend that easy. You know, we push back.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I mean that's it's sort of a progression, right? Like the Gen X kids had it harder. Like, you know, they were latchkey kids. Stuff was even grittier. being a 90s kid, which was basically my experience.
I'm technically Gen X, but
Yeah, I'm like an old millennial. Like I'm gonna be 40 in September. But yeah, I don't know. But it also varies. Like there's still kids growing up in rough neighborhoods in Chicago.
I
Yeah.
do think the kids in this generation though are way smarter when it comes to like everything else in the world, right? Computers, politics, what's actually happening around the world.
For better or
They
worse, they have access to
they
everything.
have access to
I was gonna
everything,
say
and
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
that
them
is
are
information access.
yeah, and a lot of them are just driving to learn the right ways and right things about it. Whereas I think as a kid, like I was too busy reading comic books, playing video games. I didn't. The world
Yeah.
was the world. It just existed.
I've even seen that with like people coming into the illustration industry. It's like, I went to a 4-year art school and got into a bunch of debt and like it was this very
Dude, I
structured
still
thing.
have
And
student loans.
yes, it worked out for me in the end. It didn't work out for a lot of the people I went to school with.
Right.
But now like you can just go online and like pay for like a few people's courses and probably get like more specific training. Like it's crazy how many, especially of the younger magic artists now that like didn't go to art school. Like, I mean, like you
Right.
mentioned Ben Hill earlier. Like I was talking to him in I think it was Vegas, the last Magic Con in Vegas. And like, yeah, he's just some kid from like rural Florida.
He's just
Oh yeah.
homeschooled and he learned everything.
Yeah,
Ben's
it's
one of
just
those.
nuts. You
Ben's a
can just
super
do
smart
it.
dude. He's like a sponge, man. Like,
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though. Like it's a generational thing. Like
yeah,
if you're interested in learning, you can learn everything in your bedroom now. Like
correct.
I had to live in dorms in like a bad neighborhood to learn, like first year in art school stuff.
Right. All right. Well, let's get past this and move on to the last segment because we're about an hour. We're way past the hour mark.
Sounds
I'm
good.
not sure if you found something you want to share, Chris.
I think I got something. I mean, it's silly, but
Do you want to go first or do you want to go last?
I'll go first since I'm pulling it out.
Cool.
So my wife Alex ordered this for me as a surprise. It's in line with the Elden Ring Dark Souls conversation. This is a mouse pad where
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
instead of making it like boobs or a butt or
Right.
whatever, it made it the big jiggly eyes of the I can't remember what they're called, but they're like these lizard dudes that spit death blight
Yep.
curse at you.
That's funny.
And they're a real pain in the ass in the game, so you really remember them. But I thought that was hilarious.
I totally forgot that. I saw that mouse pad like sometime last year, and I totally forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, I can't remember. It might have been RJ Palmer. I can't remember who put it together because she ordered it for me, but it's so
Yeah,
funny.
I think it is RJ. Yeah.
And those things are in every FromSoft game. Like maybe with the exception of Bloodborne, but they're in Dark Souls, they're in Elden Ring. It's like they jump universes or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably what they do. So I didn't really. I have two things in the show. I've shown this guy's work before. It was Alex Vede, Vede. But yeah, I've been trying to just collect the books that he puts out. This one's
Mm,
it's literally it's a
Mm.
sketchbook. This one's called Haunted Ink, but it's literally you're following this dude, this woman, and their ghost friend. But what I really love is his like the way he draws and paints.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it really
That's
vibes
great.
with my. Here's some of his sketches. So it really kind
Yeah,
of
it's really like
yeah
designy kind of stuff.
yeah
Sweet.
it kind of like vibrates with how I like. It looks a lot like some of my roughs. Like this is cool. Right?
Yeah, totally.
And they're not that expensive. He sells these for like oh no, it's bent. Um, they're like $20, and it's totally worth it. Or give him a follow on Instagram. He's got some beautiful artwork.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's one thing, and I'm just gonna show one quick thing that I got. I think it's so awesome. I finally got a BF910
Oh
fighter,
yeah, the Macross.
dude.
Yeah.
But I got it in the fucking 172 scale. This thing is huge. I've been looking for this forever. So my friend owns a hobby
That's
shop.
172 scale.
Yeah, look how big it is, man. That's my head.
That thing's pretty awesome.
Like, because the other ones I own are all 148 scale. The smaller ones.
Right.
So he sent me a photo of a bunch of these in his hobby shop, and I was like, "What size is that?" And I was like, I need that." So this is the normally I trade playmats for commander decks, but this time I traded for one of them. And now it's just gonna sit here till I have time to build it. So
Yeah, whenever that happens.
probably December.
Is that a Bandai or is that someone else?
It is Hasagawa.
Asakawa.
Hasegawa, which they make really good
Right.
models if I remember, but it doesn't transform. It's just a straight.
Oh, it's just the plain mode.
Just a straight plain mode, yeah. So the wings,
Okay.
fold out. There's a pilot, but yeah, man, I think this is one of the coolest things I've gotten this year. So if you're into Gundam and stuff like this, that's what I got.
I still have a Gundam that I have several because I still need to finish.
Dude, I got like 12 sitting in this closet that I haven't built yet. So
I know.
It's your
It's just
projects, right?
you just buy them as you hopefully get to build them someday.
I still have. Do you guys know Ian McHugh at all? Like the concept artist?
Yeah. Follow.
Yeah. So years back, he partnered with I forget, Mike Fitchenfu, I think is his name. He runs he has a hobby like not a shop but a hobby company he calls Industria Mechanics. And he puts out like these limited edition. I got like for Christmas one 2 little ships based on Ian McHugh's, and I have one of them done, but the other one is just sat in like a half constructed state. And I pulled it out the other day. I gotta finish this thing. I can't just let it sit there like in languishing hell.
That's the problem,
right?
Yeah.
That is not what I was going to share though. The hard drive kind of threw me for a loop this week and stuff. But I've been watching the Fallout show. I'm still.
Oh yeah.
I'm still like
I heard
halfway
that's
through
really
now.
good.
I mean,
I'm midway through right now.
Yeah, like I just finished episode 4, and yeah, it's really good. Like, well, it's really good in terms of production value, and
It's Amazon.
it seems like it's got the tone of it right.
Yeah, I think so. I've been enjoying it a lot. It feels a lot. I only played Fallout 4, but I really loved it. Like I played through it a couple times. It's just such a fun, weird world. Like it's like funny and zany and really gory and screwed up at the same time.
That was kind of the thing, like as like a diverging a little bit on it. Like that's kind of the thing I heard a lot of complaints about with like Starfield was compared to like Fallout, where it's like Fallout is you do have a lot of like weird shit in it to go along with like some of the more serious stuff, like some of the other stuff that's a little more where it's like, okay, like it's just like some stuff is like a regular post-apocalyptic thing, but on the other hand, you have like say a vault that's full of clones that only speak their name. And
every vault is a different experiment, and they didn't know it.
Yeah, it's like wild stuff. But then like you go to like I guess like feel a lot of people complain where it's like it's a whole lot of like emptiness, and then you get to a thing expecting there to be something weird, and there's not. It's just kind of like, oh, hello, I run the ship. Or oh, there's not more to this. It's kind of odd.
Yeah. I'd heard that about Starfield. That it's like you need the weird stuff to sort of give it a soul, like in a way, as opposed to just everybody being like a perfect spaceman.
Yeah, it's that's one thing I
Starfield
really like about Fallout is like it's just a bizarro thing.
And it's kind of campy on purpose too, because it's got that like 50s vibe rolled in with it. So it's almost like 50s monster horror movie sci-fi stuff tonally.
Yeah.
Mixed
And
with
there's enough, like
horror.
there's enough wacky stuff in there. It's like I remember in Fallout 3, you had the opportunity somewhere on the map there was a crashed alien wreckage.
Yeah, it's in Fallout 4 too.
Oh, is there one in Fallout 4 too? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it like Yeah, I was gonna say, do you get like a ray gun from him as well and all
Yeah,
that?
for
Nice.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
there's
same thing in
one
Fallout 3.
surviving alien, and you just have to fight him, and then you can like raid his ship.
Oh, see, so like in Fallout 3, it was basically that you didn't have to fight anybody. The guy was already dead from the wreckage, like from the crash and everything. And
Mhm.
if I remember right, in that game, it was implied that like the residual basically fucked with his navigation, and he crash landed as a result. I feel that like he's like you would have no business in that game. I remember you have no business being out that. You would have to just say, I want to walk to the edge of see what the and there's nothing else around for like miles around. There's like maybe some, but nothing like super crazy. And then just off on a hill, you notice like, that kind of looks like a 1950s spacecraft. What's that about? And then you go over, it's like, oh shit.
I've never
Yeah,
gone
it's
that far.
similar in 4. Like it's way out in like the really heavy radiation zone, and there's only a couple missions where you're supposed to go out there, but
Oh man.
fun little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Worth it for a
Yeah.
ray gun, apparently.
Yeah, no, I've been enjoying the show a lot. I can't wait to finish it.
Yeah, I was actually wondering if they were going to have like a reference to the alien thing somewhere in season 1.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I'm loving Walter Goggins' performance in it. He's always I like him as an actor anyway, so just getting him in a main role like this is
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
get
like
to, I don't get enough of him.
I love him on the Righteous Gemstones.
Oh my god, yeah, as Baby Billy.
Uncle Baby.
I've not seen that. I'll write that down.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's
a good
so
one.
good. It's on HBO. It's about a televangelist family.
Oh, okay.
That's Danny McBride, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
love that one. I love Eastbound and Down.
Mm-hmm.
He's also in Vice Principals, which they both did together. I'm down for anything Danny McBride. Like it's
Yeah.
definitely
I like Danny McBride. I couldn't take him seriously in I was talking to Andrew in the last episode about Covenant. He's an alien, Covenant.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's like
That's
a
not what he's
cowboy.
for.
Right. I'm like, I saw him in there's a movie called it's with the girl from Twilight. What's her name?
So what
Oh,
was he in with Kristen Bell?
Not Kristen Bell. Is it
Wait, is it
Kristen
I don't
Kristen Bell?
Stewart?
know. I'm
Oh,
terrible with
Kristen
Kristen.
Stewart. Yeah, Kristen Stewart.
So it's they're underwater. I think it's just called Underwater. They're like in this underwater like I think it's a
Wait,
mining facility. It's like a Cthulhu story.
he
Yeah,
is in that? I don't remember
he's
him in that.
wasn't he the dude who got mauled first? That wasn't
Uh,
him.
uh,
I might be
honestly,
confusing
like
him.
I was gonna say, like the only few, the two main deaths I kind of remember is like I remember Vincent
The dude that
Cassell's
got pulled
death.
under the door.
I'd have to remember
I'd
because
have to
like
watch it again.
yeah, the other one I remember in that movie was the guy that had his helmet on him,
Yeah, that guy
and
was
there's like a
stupid.
split second before he realizes like he fucked up because like his helmet, like as everyone else pressurizing, his helmet cracks,
Yep.
and then I think Kristen Stewart notices, and before she could say anything, his head just explodes. Pressure.
That movie's worth watching though because it's cool. It's got some cool visuals, and it's definitely a Cthulhu story. So
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I've not seen that one.
it's on like
yeah.
HBO, I think.
If I remember, I believe the monsters in that are Carlos Huante designs.
Are they?
Yeah, I followed him too. He's
Yeah.
awesome.
Writing
Yeah,
that
and
down.
he's been all over. Like I'm pretty sure he's done anything since Men in Black. He's touched one way or another.
Crazy. Yeah, his creatures are insane.
Oh yeah, no, they're amazing.
All right, well, we're an hour and 40 minutes, so way over time. Which
Is that
that's
enough
fine.
for you guys?
I don't know if that's a record for us or not.
It might be up there. Yeah.
We had an episode with Eli Manaya and Jason Engel once, which we were just having this crazy banter, but it got screwed up in the end for somehow Streamlabs
Oh yeah, it ran long and
cut
then
it.
cut. Yeah.
That
And
sucks.
so we were like, "Damn, that sucks." But there's no takebacks in this. It is what it is. So, but Chris, thanks for being on.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I
Of
hope it
course.
wasn't.
Good hang.
It was a good hangout. I'll definitely should definitely do it again at some point. Once I want to see if I can get more magic artists on. I think it'd be fun to get different perspectives on
Yeah,
different
for sure.
artists. And
There's plenty of them these days.
yeah, and I don't know who our next guest is. I'm still trying to get Sterling. I'm going back and forth, so it's potentially Sterling if he
Cool.
can
Yeah, I
get
haven't
his
seen him in
skips.
quite a while. Not since like one of the Spectrum Lives, I think.
Yeah, he's been really busy. He keeps messaging saying Wednesdays are good, and then I can't get a hold of him after that. So I'm just like, you find me, man. Like, it's cool. Thanks for responding. All right, well,
Yeah.
thanks everyone who's watching. Appreciate all the support, and we will see you next time. It's off.